If you want to start looking for your long-lost relatives, the place to begin is the Regional History and Genealogy Center in Germantown, home to the Tennessee Genealogical Society. This is where the roots of your past can be found. You can start by filling out a family unit chart, but you'll find the most helpful tools are on a computer connected to the internet. Websites like Ancestry.com are a good starting point for your search. It requires a subscription, but there are free resources like FamilySearch.org, curated by the Mormon Church. These websites have revolutionized genealogy and no doubt account for its growing popularity. DNA testing has also added to the genealogy boom. Linking your DNA results to other databases can help you find branches of your family tree that you might miss in a regular search. But sometimes a trip to the library or the local county clerk's office may be the only way to find that long-lost relative. And genealogists will tell you to prepare yourself for a few surprises along the way. To find out more about this fascinating hobby, I sat down with two professional genealogists. Okay, well, let's talk about, I know I have people watching this who may be interested in finding out their own family tree. So how do you get started?
A lot of it, people think, oh, I can't do it, I can't afford it. But it's so easy. My mother used to go to the courthouse and spend hours transcribing, like, let's say the 1880 census. Now you can go to the computer for free on Family Search or Ancestry.com and just put your name in there and it comes right out. Family Search is free. Sometimes it's FamilySearch.org. Sometimes it will send you to sites like Fold3 that does require a subscription, but then the libraries usually have a subscription to Fold3. Ancestry.com, some of their databases are free, but some of them require subscription. But we have the Ancestry Library Edition at the library, so does Benjamin Hook's library. There's a lot of sites, county archives, state archives, that are online. A lot of the counties are putting their things, like West Virginia, for an example. Even Shelby County archives have free documents, death certificates, and marriage license.
But to get started, do I need to just sit down first and write out, you know, my parents, my everything you know?
A pedigree. It's a family tree.
And you start with yourself, what you know about your parents, where they were born, when they were born, where they were born, if they're already deceased, when and where they were deceased. You start with the known and you work back towards the unknown. And of course you have two lines that you have to follow. And you have to decide which one you're going to go first. Because sometimes if you try to do both, you just get completely confused.
You get completely lost.
Which is what I did years ago when I first started.
But and you want to prove everything. You don't want to just take what someone said at face value. You want to find a document. There's two different types of documents. Primary, which happened at the time of the event, like a birth certificate or a death certificate. Then you have secondary documents that maybe someone did, like
Family Bible or
something? Yeah, Family Bible or something. And a lot of people even now are questioning, it depends on when the Bible, they want the title page to that. Unfortunately, as we get older, our family relatives that we would question have already passed away. So we got to think, what documents did they leave behind? School records, Bible records, birth, marriage, death, divorce. Your cousins might have had something that you don't know that might help.
So it's very much a detective story, isn't it?
It is. Sometimes even your certificates, like your death certificate, is not always accurate because the person, it's only as accurate as the person who gave the information. For instance, with my own grandfather, he had a second marriage and his second wife did not know the name of his father. And she just, I don't know where she came up with the name that she put down, but it was not the name of his father, so that's an incorrect death certificate. And that happens even closer to us.
It happens a lot.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it happens. And sometimes people, like, I could not find my husband's family's from Italy, but they were in St. Louis. I could not find his great-great-grandfather. His name was Salvatore Lombardo. Well, I finally found him. They had put Lombardo Salvatore. So sometimes that happens. I think the biggest thing is get started is use the census. The first census that we can get to is the 1940 census. And if you can locate your parents or grandparents from the 1940 census, then look for them. It's every 10 years they did a census. So then go to 1930, then 1920, and just follow the family.
Just methodically work your way back.
Then you'll kind of see what counties they were in. Then you'll go to those counties and do research.
The Shelby County Archives has a wonderful online presence, and if you have family that was here in Memphis, they have city directories listed back to the 1880s, 1870s. You can find people. Now, it takes a little bit of work to go through them, but you can find out. I actually traced one line of my family where they came from Alabama and when they first showed up in Memphis by doing that.
What role does DNA play in putting together your family tree?
There's 3 DNAs that people talk about. There's the mitochondrial, which is the mother's line. So it would be, and men and women can be tested for it. It's their mothers, 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 mothers. And then you have autosomal, which men and women can test for, and it just connects you to cousins. Some people call it cousin bait because it connects you to cousins. And then you have what they call the Y DNA, which is your male line, which would be your, like my husband's Sansone, it'd be a Sansone, Sansone, Sansone.
Now on the websites, I mean, some of the big ones, Ancestry.com, you can put your name in and bing, here come results. It's so easy. How accurate are those results?
Some of it is accurate. We generally tell people to use it as a guideline. For instance, on Ancestry, I might find something, someone has put that so-and-so is my great-great-grandfather. I might go ahead and put it in and then see what I can find. I'll research it. I'll make sure that I have proven myself that this person is indeed the person that I think it is. But you can't take it as scripture. You have to really do your own research. You only use that as a basic guideline.
Now, what happens, and I'm sure this happens, it's got to, what happens when you reach a dead end?
We call that a brick wall.
Yeah, brick, okay. I mean, you literally do get to a point where you can't go further?
I think I've hit it on at least one line, but most of the time, if you just keep at it, you can just chip away at that brick. Sometimes you have to hire a professional, which we've both acted as professionals. She's done that more than I have and have helped other people. But we both have brick walls.
What about ethnic groups? Are there ethnic groups?
Well, right now,
differences?
I'll get to that. Right now, Family Search is the one that goes to all these different counties all over the world and digitizes records. Every week they're letting go. So what you might have a brick wall this week, they may let go of a record like a probate record that might show the kids. So you might not can find something today, but you don't know what they're going to release. But on the ethnic groups, like let's take African American for an example. They're going to be on the census down to 1870. Before that, when slavery, they weren't listed. And so then what you want to do is find someone that may be a plantation owner that may have the same last name they have, search their probate records and see if they're listed.
Or the slave schedules.
Slave schedules. Some people actually took pictures and treated their slaves as family and they're included in their books. I mean, I've had that happen on a Maryland family.
But even if you can trace back to Africa, doesn't it end there pretty much?
They have gone, Family Search, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the one who does a lot of this, and they send people over to these countries, whether it's Native American tribes, whether it's Africa, whether it's Germany, and they'll go to these different areas and they'll do DNA. And so when you do your DNA, whatever your DNA closest matched, they'll usually say that's where you're from. But saying that, most ethnic groups are only going to show, unless it's just pure like German or French, but for Native American and African American, after 3 generations, the DNA is what we call watered down, so to speak, and it may not show up. I've got a friend that I know 5 lines, she's got Native American, but her DNA shows nothing.
I would imagine there are surprises. Not every relative is going to be a saint. There might be a few sinners in there.
No.
You have a story about your mother.
We always tell people, if you get into genealogy, be prepared for what you might find. And if you're not prepared, if you don't think you can handle it, don't do it. And I have just kind of thrown that out to people kind of laughingly until the 1940 census came out, and I found out that my own mother had gotten married at age 15. This is something that no one ever knew, and we only found it out because in the 1940 census, they give you a question, where were you 5 years before? And on the census page, there are 2 people that they highlight from that whole page. My mother, of course, was one of them. And my step-grandfather, I always say he busted her out. She actually, they actually have a question that says, has this person ever been married before? And of course I read it, and when I saw the word yes, I nearly fell out of my seat because she was only 20 at the time, and I'm thinking, no, my mother got married in 1941. And so luckily when it got to the column, were any children born, and it said 0, I was very happy.
I bet.
So I did not have to go looking for any brothers or sisters.
Well, I tell you, DNA has really helped adoptees find their.
Yes.
I helped a guy in New York find his birth mother, and he had been looking for years and years and years, and finally, I won't go into this whole other show to tell how it happened, but
A whole
we found
nother story.
he was an only child with his adoptive family, and there were some trials. His adoptive family struggled with it, but now everything's fine. But he's got like 5 or 6 brothers and sisters now.
Tell me what each of you have received from tracing your roots, building your family tree. What is the satisfaction
The joy
you get?
of knowing who those people were. There are so many ancestors that we all have. It doubles every generation. You know, we have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, and it doubles, and it's just amazing the numbers that are out there. If any one of those people had been different, we wouldn't be who we are. We wouldn't be sitting here. Any one of those people. So you want to know who they were, but once you start, it's more than collecting names. You want to know about them. You want to know what their lives were like. You want to know
Put meat
what
to
did
the
they
bones
do.
is what John
Yeah.
Coletta says. Mine was just understanding more why my grandmother was like she was. Why they, it was kind of, I don't want to say it was an arranged marriage, but it kind of was. You know, back then she was, you know, there's a lot of kids. They had lots of kids back then, and every 2 years it's like they were popping out babies, and so there wasn't a really close relationship till the end, and they got really close. But when I saw what her parents went through, and then I found out they came across on a horse, you know, in a buggy with all these kids and no money, you know, struggled, it kind of makes it a little bit more, appreciate more what we have. I mean, they didn't have the nice mattresses that we have and the pillows, and sometimes if you think about it, they didn't have the grocery store like we have to go to the Kroger or the Walmart. They had to sew their clothes, and so it kind of, when you really, really look at the history, it makes you appreciate what you have more and understand why they were the way they were.
Most of us have a family story that gets us involved. I had actually 2 family stories that I wanted to prove. One of them I didn't believe, and the other one I did believe, and it turned out that the one I did believe was not true, and the one I didn't believe was true. So that's why we get into it. And these were family stories that had been passed down for years. So we want to know those things, and the idea, like she was saying, how they lived. A lot of people who get into genealogy don't know history. I'm a retired history teacher, and it always amazes me, you don't know about this war, or you don't know about this, and so that's kind of the joy of getting people into genealogy, because they learn history too.
And give me your closing piece of advice.
Well, a lot of it, just a couple of it, is if you do have family history, decide before you pass away who's going to inherit that. Is there someone in the family that's going to take on the legacy? Do you want to donate it to a genealogical society where that's from? And the second is, I always said how excited I would be if I found my grandmother's journal from 100 years ago. Well, 100 years from now, someone's going to want to know about you, whether you have children or not. There's going to be cousins, your grandkids. So write your story. Write down. Don't just say I had a good day. Write why you had a good day. Tell who your parents are. Tell your descendants your lessons that you learned during your lifetime.
Or even record it. Do something with it. Let other people know about it.
Because 100 years from now, somebody might appreciate that.
They can get that old cassette tape and transfer it to whatever they're using.
Oh, well, Carla and Tina, thank you very much for being on the show and talking about genealogy.
We appreciate you asking us. Thank you.
If you're ready to discover your family tree, you can start at the Tennessee Genealogical Society offices or visit their website for information about becoming a member and connecting with experts that can help you find your roots.